The courtroom is a place where justice is served, but these convicts turned it into a slaughterhouse. First up is Brian Nichols, who was responsible for the Fulton County Courthouse massacre in Atlanta, Georgia, on March 11, 2005. Nichols was in court for rape and kidnapping charges, but quickly enough he decided to add way more charges to his file when he executed an escape plan friends and family had feared. He first overpowered Sheriff Deputy Cynthia Hall, stole her gun, and put her in a coma. Then, in true criminal mastermind fashion, he would disguise himself in civilian clothes before entering the courtroom and holding case managers at gunpoint to find his true target, Judge Rowland Barnes, tragically shot and killed, along with a court reporter Julianne Brandau and Sergeant Hoyt Teasley. All of these innocent people lost their lives just so that Nichols could make his escape. It only got wilder from there, though, as Nichols stole several vehicles, tried to kidnap a young woman who managed to escape, and even stole the pickup truck and gun of an ICE special agent, David G. Wilhelm, after fatally shooting him. Nichols rained absolute terror on Atlanta that day, and it seemed like no one was beyond his grasp. This reign ended in the home of Ashley Smith, which Nichols had broken into. After taking care of Nichols and even giving him drugs, he let her go, and she managed to call the cops, ending his terror once and for all. Nichols would soon go to a place all too familiar to him, the courtroom. This time, however, he was there to get put away for good. Nichols shocked everyone with a not guilty insanity plea, but the prosecution did not care, going straight for the death sentence. After the jury deliberated for 12 hours, there was finally a decision on Nichols' 54 charges, and the judge would let him know what he'd done.
None of this will be served on probation. I'm not planning on giving Mr. Nichols any probation at all. Neither am I planning on giving him a fine. Even though you may not like Mr. Nichols, let's give a fair trial to everybody. Let's let them continue to be innocent until proven guilty. Let's give everybody a jury trial if they wanted it, and that's what Mr. Nichols wanted, and that's what he got. And let's treat them perhaps better than they treated everybody else. I don't want to make it personal, but at the same time, if I can save a life, do not trust Mr. Nichols. Ever again. Ever again. Don't trust him.
Ultimately, Nichols was given several life sentences for each crime he committed. It's fair to say he'll find prison much, much harder to escape from. While Nichols' murders were spur of the moment in his escape, Quinte Hudson had his murders planned out. On March the 27th of 2016, security guard Michael Wright was about to testify in a 2014 case against Quinte Hudson, who had injured a child by throwing a concrete block through a car's windscreen. Shockingly, and with no coincidence, Wright was shot and killed before his witness testimony. The finger was immediately pointed toward Quinte Hudson, and it didn't help that he was a high-ranking member of the neighborhood Bloods Rolling 20s gang. Hudson's smoking gun, however, was a jailhouse call on March the 17th, in which he said, "I'm trying to get this witness killed. I'd rather be sitting here for murder than sitting here for anything else." Apparently, Hudson was on a call with a man by the name of Hercules Bowers, in which he asked Wright to be killed so that he wouldn't testify. In court, Hudson was suddenly facing way more than the original 15 to 30 years he was facing for the concrete block attack, and he was also facing Michael Wright's family.
This is a photo of my brother Michael Shelton Wright Muhammad. The next time I saw my brother, he was in a morgue with several gunshots throughout his body.
Wright's family was surprisingly forgiving.
"We have no harm and wish no harm against you. We love you. You're a victim just like us."
However, the law wasn't as forgiving as the victim's family, as Hudson was given a life sentence without a possibility of parole. The sentencing sent Hudson into an outburst. Speaking of outbursts, it's best not to threaten to kill a judge when you're bargaining for a reduced sentence, but Wilfredo Cotto Jr. must have missed this memo. Wilfredo Cotto Jr. was in court for the shooting of 28-year-old Benjamin Davis in the Red Carpet Inn in New York. It all went down when Davis was first shot by a mystery man until he managed to literally crawl for help. David was shot in the chest and face, but there was no sign of forced entry. The mystery could have lingered forever, but fate had it that a man came forward with a phone, which he'd let another man use. But apparently he didn't sign out of the Facebook Messenger app and exposed Wilfredo Cotto Jr. as the killer, who was having a conversation with another man on the app, telling him he had just killed someone. Wilfredo was arrested and wanted to enter a plea deal for a reduced sentence of 20 years. However, when a video of the murder was played in court, Wilfredo shattered his hopes of the sentencing he wanted when he erupted at the judge and prosecutor.
I ever make it back to United County, the first one to shoot is you.
Hey,
you.
Mr. Cotto.
I'm telling you what's gonna happen.
Mr. Cotto.
Wilfredo was found guilty and was given 23 years for second-degree murder and second-degree possession of a weapon in connection to a murder. While these victims were far enough from the killers, William Denby J. had the heart to kill his own wife. In Lorain County, Ohio, William Denby Jr. and his wife Holly were having a rough marriage. What started off as an argument regarding their failing marriage ended up as a bloodbath when William grabbed a 7-inch combat knife and stabbed his wife 8 times and slashed her throat twice after she fell from the bedroom window. While most killers would try to escape, William strangely called 911 and confessed what he'd done. But before he would kill himself, he decided he needed to apologize to him and Holly's son, and he didn't want the kids to come home and find the body. It was an unusual moment of clarity for a killer, but it couldn't save William in court. William had to face several of Holly's family, who let out their true feelings on the stand.
Your Honor, this family and Holly's son have waited for justice for Holly since August 11, 2011. Today, we come as a family to ask this court to hear our anguish and to bear witness to our pleas for justice.
Holly was a wonderful, warm, caring person. She was the epitome of sunshine.
William himself got his chance to speak, then he took it a bit too far when he started criticizing Holly's aunt.
Shame on you, Cheryl.
That is enough.
Mr. Denby.
That is enough,
Mr. Denby, once again, you speak to me about your relationship, if you wish, between you and Holly Denby. I'm not interested in your position with regard to her members of her family.
The one person who would have none of that was Holly's uncle, who went off on William Denby and gave him a lesson in court.
You know what? I've had enough. You cut her throat twice. You stabbed her 8 times. You cold-blooded killer. I've had enough of her.
William definitely needed a lesson in what not to say, since he'll need it in prison to serve his life sentence, with the chance of parole after 20 years. Speaking of murderous husbands, Tristan Lamoureux joined in on their horror. On February the 1st, 2009, in Cedar City, Utah, Vicky Smith started hearing terrifying screaming and gunshots coming from her neighbor's home. All of a sudden, a bullet went through her wall. The source was the home of Tristan and Misty Lamoureux. When the police arrived, however, they found a shocking scene. Misty was dead in her apartment, while her husband, Tristan, was escaping. When Tristan was arrested, he tried to argue that Misty shot herself, and that he even tried taking the gun away from her. He must have forgotten that he tried to run away and escape after the fact, rather than sit and absorb the tragic quote-unquote suicide of his beloved wife. The police bit for a while and charged Tristan with possession of a firearm and running from the police, but then the proof was in Misty's autopsy when it was discovered she was shot multiple times in the head. Now, since it's impossible for someone to shoot themselves in the head more than once, the finger was immediately pointed at Tristan, who pled guilty for the crime. As per the plea deal, Tristan Lamoureux only received 15 years behind bars, but it wasn't good enough for Misty's brother, Jason Wilson, who started giving a very intense speech in court. All of a sudden, Jason attacked Tristan, but got restrained before he could deliver the knockout. Although Wilson didn't get his revenge in court, he got it in the form of Tristan's cellmate, who stabbed him in prison and put him in the hospital for 6 months. While all of these were cold-blooded killers, none were as terrifying as Mark Latunsky. Mark Latunsky might be the real-life incarnation of Hannibal Lecter, with his completely lifeless eyes in court before he confesses to the horrors he had done. In Michigan, on December the 24th, 2019, Carol Bacon's son, Kevin, went missing, and the father filed a missing persons report. Apparently, Kevin had been on a Grindr date with Mark Latunsky, the police's then #1 suspect. What was intended to be a romantic night turned into doom, as the police found Kevin hanging by his ankles in a secret room in Mark's basement. He had a stab wound in his back, a slit throat, and no testicles, which had been removed by Mark and mind-bogglingly eaten. Latunsky cemented himself as a brutal killer, no different from the worst movie villains. Latunsky couldn't hide anything anymore, so he confessed to everything in court, to the point where he was a bit too honest.
On that date, were you with Kevin Bacon?
Yes, I was.
Did you use a knife to stab Mr. Bacon?
Yes, I did.
After Mr. Bacon was dead, did you remove part of his body, specifically his testicles?
Yes, I did.
Did you move those testicles to the kitchen?
Yes, I did.
In court, Kevin's family had no remorse towards this killer, telling him, "In your sick, twisted mind, you probably don't think you did anything wrong. This Christmas, I hope you suffer like we have." Contrary to what the family might have wanted, though, Latunsky took a plea deal and saved his neck from the death penalty with a life sentence without parole instead.
Mr. Latunsky, the court agrees with the attorneys. The court does find you guilty of open murder and dismembering a body.
Out of all of these, only Elise Nelson Ortiz Nieves had the heartlessness to kill a defenseless child. In Grand County, Michigan, 4-year-old Giovanni Mejias was dying in excruciating pain in his home from an abdominal tear, 2 broken ribs, cigarette marks, and belt injuries all over his body. Inside his home were other children, and Elise Nelson Ortiz Nieves, who was dating the caretaker of these children. After Mejias' tragic death, it was clear Ortiz Nieves was the only person around who could have done it, and the jury agreed, taking only an hour to come to their decision.
You had put cigarettes out on this poor little child. There was evidence of that from the pictures.
Yet Ortiz Nieves still insisted that he was innocent. Somehow. This set the judge into a fury, and he gave Ortiz Nieves a piece of his mind regarding the murder. Ellis couldn't take it in court, though, and suddenly started getting aggressive, even trying to attack the officers restraining him.
The bruises, some of the bruises were in the shape of a belt buckle.
Man, I ain't gonna let you, man. I ain't gonna let you sit here and say no crazy about me, man. No, man, because he's saying you don't even know, man.
Sir?
Unlike children, however, Ortiz Nieves couldn't mercilessly overpower them, and he had to take his sentence of life without a possibility of parole, plus 80 to 150 years for child abuse. At the end, the judge told Ortiz Nieves exactly what he thought of him.
You are the lowest form of human life that I've been able to observe or see. You are a monster, and quite frankly, you are evil.